Greetings, metaphysicians. This is episode 133, How to Meditate. And of course, there's so many different methods of how to meditate, but once you find the one that works for you, it is extremely powerful. So I hope that this episode helps you to get there. Enjoy.
You're listening to Let's Get Metaphysical. This podcast explores the spiritual and metaphysical world through the experiences and opinions of the host and those interviewed. It should not necessarily be seen as direct endorsement or personal advice to our listeners. We encourage you to use your own discernment, judgment, and intuition regarding anything you learn from this show.
Let's get meta.
Welcome to the Let's Get Metaphysical podcast. I'm your host, Renata Maniaci, here to remind you that you are a divine spiritual being having a temporary human experience here on lovely planet Earth. Make the most of it. This is Season 7, Heaven on Earth, and this is episode 133, How to Meditate. That's right, we're going to talk about meditation. And I do not pretend to be an expert on meditation, just like I do not pretend to be an expert on grounding or centering, our last two episodes. And if you haven't listened to those, you might enjoy them. Very good tools to have in your toolbox. And similarly, we are going to talk about how to meditate today. Are you ready? Let's get meta. Masters and angels, I request your presence, guidance, and support through this episode. Please help these words be useful to all listeners on their evolutionary journey. Let me know the truth, speak the truth, become the truth, and be the truth. And please let this episode reach whoever needs to hear it. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. Bless creation. And before I jump into how to meditate, I just want to make a little note. I am a student. In fact, I would say that I'm a student of consciousness and not an expert in any of these, but I do and have dipped my feet in all of these topics that I talk about and am still learning a great deal about them. And it is my honor and pleasure to share what I've gleaned with you. And I hope somewhere somebody out in the world finds some of this information useful. And that's why I do it. But I don't know everything. I will never know everything while I'm in this body. And there are many ways to do things. And I just like to share my experience with people so that hopefully it can help people. How to meditate. First of all, what is meditating? On its most basic level, and I've heard this, I can't even remember where I first heard this analogy, but I really loved it and it resonated deeply with me. What it said was, prayer is speaking to God and meditation is listening to God. Or listening to the universe, listening to your high self, listening to the supreme being, the source, however you want to conceptualize that, right? But I just love that, and it resonated so deeply that praying or making requests or asking for help, that is speaking or talking to the divine, right? And meditating is listening to the divine. So essentially, that's how I think of it in its most simplest form. Meditation is listening to the divine. And there's been so many ways and methods and modalities devoted to doing this. And that's a good thing, I think, because everyone is built differently. And I don't think that everyone could do it in the same way. Maybe at some further, later, higher level state of consciousness that humans will reach, it will just become, easy and obvious and clear. But we have so much in this world that we've built up and worship above just connecting with the divine. There's so many distractions, and especially now with screens and phones and Netflix and everything, there's a lot of distractions from us communing with the divine. And so meditation has become, at least, recently in this part of the world, this way to do that many people are flocking towards. And there's, again, like I said, so many different ways to do that and so many different methods. And I'm not going to get into all those methods. I'll name some here now, and then we'll go into just a few that I'm more familiar with. But some people meditate by simply just becoming quiet and still and focusing on their breath. And that's what they keep their focus on, their inhale and their exhale. And that works for a lot of people. Or some people have a mantra. That's something that you say, a word or phrase that you repeat either out loud or inside. And that helps you to keep your focus and your mind from wandering to all of the things that consume our thoughts all the time. Our minds are this very human, very physical structure, physical, mental structure, physical in the sense that it is attached on some level to our physical body. And they're always going, at least for a lot of us. I can speak for myself. My mind seems to always be going. And so sometimes having a mantra or having something to focus on to bring your mind back is useful. And in fact, a lot of people, myself included, really enjoy or start meditating through what's called a guided meditation. And that is when someone or something is leading you, voice guiding you through a visualization or a story, or just guiding you into different states and doing meditation that way. I remember one of the first times that I ever felt like I connected to my guidance, my own guidance. I was taking a Reiki level 1 course, and my teacher was doing a guided meditation with us. And I don't remember exactly all the ins and outs, but essentially he was guiding us, and we were to visualize walking through a forest, and then all of a sudden up ahead we saw a cottage, and when we walked in we saw this nice fire going, and there was somebody sitting next to the fire in a chair, and you looked and saw that that person was your guide. And of course, in our own individual minds, all of us saw different people or beings or things, right? And I very clearly saw Archangel Gabriel in a feminine form. And don't ask me how I knew it was Archangel Gabriel. I just knew. And that was a really powerful example of a guided meditation for me. And it worked. And actually, come to think of it, I do really well with guided meditations, and I don't really do them so much anymore because I am more into the meditations that I have been doing that I'm going to get into in a few moments. But that is to say, there are so many different teachers and so many different ways of, if you're just staying on the topic of guided meditation, there's infinite ways to be led in guided meditation, right? And there's also so many teachers of meditation who have created their own methods, who are purveyors of methods that have been passed down through generations. And if meditation is something that you're interested in, and theoretically, if you're listening to this episode, you probably are interested in it, don't be afraid to try different ways of doing it until you find the way that is kind of like the key that unlocks that first doorway for you to continue to do it. I would highly recommend trying different methods, but trying them not just once and, deciding that you don't like it. pick a method and try for a good week every day for at least, you pick the time. I would suggest at least 10 minutes. If you're an adult, I think you can handle at least 10 minutes, but give these different methods, these different ways of doing this a good shot. Don't just try it one time. Go for a week and try some of these methods until you figure out what works for you, because there's so many different things. And you can use the breath. You can use these guided meditations. There's several apps out there now for different meditations. Some of them are just with music. Some of them are silence. Some of them have words. Some of them are visualization exercises. And all of them are, I think, worth trying and worth checking out. And again, lots of different teachers do various meditation techniques. And I'm going to mention some of those here that I am more familiar with. And of course, acknowledging that there are so many that I don't know about and can't talk about because I don't know them. But one that several million people do and follow is from a teacher called Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, or Guruji, or Gurudev. Those are different names for Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. And his version of meditation is one way, right? And I'm not necessarily well versed in that, but I do know that that is a very effective meditation technique. He has around 38 million people who are doing his form of meditation. And obviously it is working for that number of people and somehow enhancing their lives. So maybe you'll feel called to do that kind of meditation. I know that it involves a certain breathing technique. I have also read about Kriya Yoga and that form of meditation. And I also highly recommend the book called Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda, that besides being an incredible true story of one of these great saints, Yogananda is the founder of Kriya Yoga. So that is an incredible time-tested and true technique. If that calls to you, you can look that up. I also want to plug transcendental meditation as a really beautiful and effective form of meditation. This method involves being, all of these on some level, these ones that I'm mentioning right now, involve being initiated into this technique on some level. So there's a little kind of initiation, there's a little ceremony. It is a sacred thing to be part of these different forms of meditation. And within TM, I have taken the first class of TM, and you have your initiation and your ceremony, and you receive a mantra. And that is your individual mantra. And you use that when you are practicing the TM meditation technique. And everyone has their own mantra. And for me, I found that to be incredibly useful because my mind wanders and I need something to focus on, which I think is why voiced or guided meditation works so well for me, and also having a mantra works so well for me. And then there's the type of meditation that I do every single day and have been doing for the last 7 years. And those are the processes that I listen to from my teacher, John Douglas. And I mention them all the time on the podcast, and there's several different ones, but those ones also work really well for me. And more than meditating, I guess the processes might not even, I don't know if they would even be categorized as meditations, although I feel that that's what I'm doing while I'm listening to them. But they are also just so active. There's things happening while you're listening to them. It's like pressing play and angels arriving to help you with certain things, depending on which process it is, whether it's soul repair, health repair, relationship development, emotional repair, things like this. But for me, that is a very profound part of my own practice. And I guess I would call it meditation because I do it for anywhere from 1 to 3 hours a day. And coming out of that, or being in that and then coming out of it, always makes me feel more connected with myself, more connected with the divine, more able to be ready to handle any situation, more connected with my own guidance. I receive a lot of answers when I meditate. That's one of the main reasons why I do it, because I have a lot of questions, whether they're like questions for my everyday life or existential questions. And I find that I get answers while I'm meditating, doing these various things in various ways. And, that kind of brings us into this discussion of why meditate in the first place. And, other than listening to what the divine has to say, there's all these benefits, and you can go and just Google benefits of meditation. It'll be faster probably than listening to this episode. But the sense of calm, the sense of focus, the actual physiological response that I know happens, I can only speak for that happening with transcendental meditation and these processes from my teacher, John Douglas, that I had just mentioned. I know that with those two, you actually get to kind of dump your cache, like your cachet of stuff, of built up stresses and worries and other people's energies. And these techniques actually help you to clear that. And maybe other techniques do too. I just can't fully vouch for them because I haven't experienced that. Other techniques, I've definitely gotten information, like I told you with that story with Archangel Gabriel. I have so many other meditation stories too. Maybe some more will drop in throughout this episode to share with you. But what's important is that some of these actually like clear the slate physiologically in your being, in your mental, emotional, physical levels and layers. That's what meditation can offer. And one thing that I'm really excited about, I have no intention of stopping my meditation practice. I find it very useful. And I always feel better after having done it, even if it's only for 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour. It's always better. But I've only been doing it consistently for about 7 years, which, for some people is a really long time. But I have so many in my community and in my friend group who've been meditating for decades, every day. And you can tell just by their being. 30 years of meditation, 40 years of meditation. I know people who have been meditating for upwards of 50 years, 55 years. And that does something to a person. If it's a real and deep and true form of meditation and convening with the divine, it changes you on a very deep level. And some of these people in my life, and I ask them questions all the time because I strive to be able to be like them or to have experiences like them. And part of it is just the experiences. I talked about this a few episodes ago in the episode Transcendence. And I mentioned that I have friends and people in my life who transcend every day. Well, that episode actually was kind of a precursor to me wanting to talk about this one, because would it be like to be able to transcend every day? And I have people who live down the road from me who do this every single day when they're meditating. They go into it and they've been doing it for so long that they're just there. And what is transcending again? It is going above. It's reaching beyond the limits of our limited daily experience in this physical reality. It's going beyond that. And for some of them, it's so easy and common that it becomes their lived reality, their day-to-day reality. It's just this different state of being that they're in almost constantly sometimes, but especially when they're meditating or processing. And I have not reached that phase yet. I don't transcend every time I meditate, even though I do it every day. And there are moments that I do, and a lot of them, those moments don't necessarily happen when I am meditating. The one I spoke about a few episodes ago was being in a Russian Orthodox church in Estonia and hearing this gorgeous choir, and I transcended. And those are those are the factors and determinants that help me to be able to transcend that day. But why meditate? Why do this? For me, it's communing with the divine. For me, it is gaining deeper insight into what I am supposed to do. For me, it gives me answers. And that's my main purpose, is to listen. I think that's why I like that analogy so much. It's because it's just to listen. And how often in our lives do we take the time to listen? And I feel like that's one of my most important, I don't know if it would be called a contribution, a point, a factor of this whole show that I like to bring up, is to remind us that we have the ability to receive any answer that we need, and that it's not that hard. And if you can take these moments to meditate or listen, become still and listen, you can hear and receive any answer to any question that you need in that moment. But a lot of people, what they do is they will ask in a moment of need and forget to listen for the answer. Forget to become still enough to allow that response, that knowing, that guidance, that insight, that intuition, that voice to come in. But I almost guarantee you that when you ask something, or when you just be, and be quiet and still enough, long enough to just listen, you will get what you need. And I think that is consciously or subconsciously why so many people are being drawn to meditate now. Subconsciously, people know that they are missing something. They might not understand that it's the divine, right? They might not understand that it's the help that they've been looking for, or the comfort, or the remembrance, or the memories, or the knowing that they've been looking for. But so many more people lately have been drawn to trying methods like this. I think one of the issues is that people stop too soon. They try it once, they can't get their monkey mind, we call it a monkey mind because it keeps moving, thing to thing to thing, to stop on the first try, and then they quit or stop trying, right? And so silencing the mind is difficult. And even after all this time, I have difficulty silencing my mind on some days, for sure. But like anything worth doing, it takes time and it takes practice. We can't expect to just master something in one shot. And so that's why I am a big advocate, even though I have my preferred ways to meditate and to listen to the divine. I am a big advocate of trying these different ways. Give it time. Give it at least a week. Give it 7 days of trying at least before moving on. But give yourself a real shot with all these different ways until you find something that is working for you. And when you do, you will know it. You will feel it. You'll either be getting the answers that you are looking for or need. You'll be getting the tremendous amount of relief, mental and emotional relief, even physical relief that you've been seeking. You'll feel yourself changing physiologically. You'll feel stress leaving your body. You'll feel more calm. You'll feel more connected to yourself. You'll feel more connected to your guidance, to whatever your version of the divine is. You'll feel more connected to your purpose, to your mission, to who you truly are, and to why you're actually here. These little things, one thing meditation does for me, and I think for a lot of people, is it helps the little things to fall away. The little things that stress us out, but that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, it helps those things to fall away. You know, this episode's called How to Meditate. So many different forms, as I mentioned, but I can give a few tips that have worked for me on literally how to meditate. For me, I need a quiet place. I need a comfortable seat. Now, some people do the cross-legged meditation. Some people sit in a chair with their feet on the ground, their back straight. Some people lie down. I'm mostly a person that sits upright while I meditate. Sometimes if I'm really tired, I will lay down. But I like to have my feet on the ground and my back straight. I find that when my spinal cord is aligned, I can feel the energy flowing. And that's also where grounding comes in and centering comes in. See the 2 previous episodes. It's no mistake that I did them in the order that I did. Centering and grounding are beautiful things to do before you start to meditate. Hence why I did these episodes in this order. So go ahead and center when you sit down to meditate. Go ahead and ground. Centering is becoming present in the present moment. You can do that by focusing on your breath as a reminder. Grounding is intentionally connecting in, plugging yourself in, literally plugging yourself into the Earth's energy field and the universal energy field. Start by doing those 2 things. Center, then ground, and then listen. And if you're like me, you might need something to focus on. You might enjoy beginning with guided meditations of some sort, or you might enjoy picking a mantra and focusing on that mantra, or you might enjoy and be able to focus on your breath. Okay? If you're looking for a mantra and you don't have one that I highly recommend is Bless Creation. Why? Because it's such a beautiful thing to do when you're saying or literally thinking bless creation. That's what you're doing. You're blessing all of creation, and that's good karma right there. So you can meditate and get good karma at the same time by blessing creation. You know, I often go into meditation having a question. And so I'll set an intention at the beginning. I'll center, I'll ground, and I'll set the intention. Please help me to know what to do in this situation, or please answer this question. And I'll throw it out there to the divine. And then I settle in and listen. Whether I'm actually listening to an actual process, or whether I am listening to my breath, or whether I'm listening to the mantra that I'm saying or thinking in my head, but I just listen. I'm open and I'm listening to the divine. And I usually get an answer pretty much right away. And then you can just keep going and keep listening and say, hey, divine, what else do you have to tell me today? What do I need to know? So many different ways to meditate. Keep trying them all until you find one that you like. I'm not an expert, but I'm certainly well versed in a lot of different ways to do it. And I found my ways that work for me. And I know that you will too. I pray that you do too. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Again, this episode is a how-to episode. It is the bonus content itself. But if you are interested in all the other bonus content that we've ever done on this show, you can find that at patreon.com/letsgetmeta. And you can also become a patron angel of the podcast at that same place. And if you're liking these, please don't hesitate to give us a 5-star review or write something nice on the podcast reviews. That really helps to drive attention to these episodes for people who would benefit from them. So thank you again for listening. Stay positive, stay safe, and stay meta.
The Let's Get Metaphysical podcast is an Up and Awaken production and is produced and hosted by Renata Maniaci. Our intention is to raise the vibration of the planet by sharing, validating, and normalizing spiritual and metaphysical experiences. If you are ready to raise your vibration, you might enjoy our free Let's Get Meta Master Clearing. To receive the Master Clearing or to learn more about the podcast, visit letsgetmeta.com. The Let's Get Meta podcast is inspired by angels and supported by angels. If you would like to be a patron angel to the podcast, visit patreon.com/letsgetmeta. Thank you for listening. Stay meta.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.